Okay, yeah, Devansh, thanks for bringing that to my notice. Okay, so first of all, let's understand how to calculate the variable tension. And just before that, we need to calculate the area of cross section. So for area of cross section, we will understand that the we'll calculate the area like this, that mass upon length into density. Okay, this should give us the area of cross section. So mass of the rod is 25 kg. Okay. The length is 10 meters and the density is 8 into 10 raised power 3. So this will give us the area in meters square. This is the area of cross section, or this is the area of cross section. Now coming back to this, the first thing we can do is make the combined free body diagram for the block plus rod. So on a frictionless surface, so this force will be creating this much acceleration. So 2 meters per second square. Now, once you got that acceleration, you can see that you can calculate the tension at any point in the rod. So suppose we consider a point in the rod which is at a distance x from this side. So we make the FBD of this section and we see that if this has a mass of mx, F minus tension at that point is mass of that section into A. So so 150 minus T is equal to 25 by 10 into 2 into x. So you can see that the tension in the rod as a function of position is 150 minus 5x. So we'll also understand that the tension or the stress varies non-linearly like this. So for example, if you just visualize the tension with respect to position, you see that the tension is maximum at x equal to 0 and minimum at x equal to L. Which is 10 meters. Okay. So this is about the non-uniform stress, first of all. The stress at a point as a at a point at x from the right end of the rod, that is given by this formula. So once we found this non-uniform stress, next step what we can do is we can take a differential element whose natural thickness would have been dx, but because of the deformity, its thickness is dx plus delta of dx. And we can apply both the concepts to it, the Hooke's law concept and also the energy density concept for calculation of the two separate things. Okay, Parth, I will verify your answer in just some time. Meanwhile, calculate the potential energy also stored. Okay, Jagannath, you want to note down the information? Yeah, I'll just scroll up. Okay, so this part is done. Okay, so now let's come to calculation of the strain as well as the potential energy. We'll do both the calculations by analysis of a differential element and then integration. So under the action of this stress, now you'll also realize that on this rod, based on the calculation that we've just done, the force from this side was 150 newtons. And that is why the tension at this end, let's say it's T2 or whatever, T0, because that's our x equal to 0. That was 150 newtons. But the reaction force that is acting from the attachment point at this end that will balance the tension at this end, which is of length L. And we saw that that tension was 100 newtons. So that's how the tension is varying. So under the action of this kind of situation, the whole thing is got elongated. So it's, let's say, at L plus delta L. So now if we slice an element here, this will also be at an elongated kind of length. So it will be at, if its natural thickness was dx, it is now at dx plus delta dx. Okay. But if this was at a position at a distance x, then the tension acting on it from both the sides would be such that if this tension is T, this tension is some T minus dt, because the tension is decreasing with position. Okay. So for this differential element, okay, the strain, the longitudinal strain is delta of dx divided by dx, and this longitudinal stress is T by A, where T we have seen is that quantity. Okay. In newtons, X is in meters, and A is this much in meters. Okay. So applying Hooke's law to that element, we will see that stress upon strain is equal to Young's modulus. So the amount of deformation that we have for that material is stress upon Young's modulus into its natural length dx. So that makes it this is our delta dx. So integration of this will give us the elongation. Okay. So this will give us delta L. Okay. And also, apart from this, we will also apply energy density concept to this. So for this differential element, we'll also see that the potential energy stored in it is the energy density multiplied by its volume. So that is half of Young's modulus into this square, okay, into the volume, or we can also write it as stress squared upon Young's modulus into volume. Okay. So again, here the volume of that element we'll write as A dx, and we'll integrate for this, and we get the total energy, the elastic potential energy. So this is the method for calculation of the total elastic potential energy stored when we are having a situation of non-uniform stress and therefore non-uniform energy density.
Sir, could you please explain this part again? Sir,
Yes.
could you please explain this part again?
Which part?
Uh, like from the difference, from how you derived the last thing,
The variable tension or the application of it for Hooke's law?
the application.
Okay, so
Everything
what is that?
written in blue. That one.
This part, no? Okay. So you're taking a differential element whose natural length was dx, but whose elongated length is dx plus delta dx. Okay. So what is the strain for it? Is the elongation upon natural length?
Yes.
Understood? No? So this term is basically the change in length from its natural length of dx to delta plus dx. So its delta dx is the change in length divided by dx, which is the natural length. So that's the strain. Whereas the stress it is under is the value of tension at the distance x divided by the area of cross section. So the value of tension is this, area of cross section is uniform, is this. Got it now?
Yes.
Now you apply Hooke's law for that small element. Now. So the ratio of stress and strain is the Young's modulus of the material, and that was given to us. The Young's modulus was given to us as 2 into 10 raised power 11 Newton per meter square. This is applying Hooke's law to this, and then rest is algebra. You're just rearranging this term. So bring this delta dx on this side. This dx comes in the numerator, Young's modulus comes in the denominator. So the elongation for that small element is equal to this much. So that small part of the rod is elongated by delta of dx, which is this quantity. So the total elongation of the rod will become integration of the elongations for all the small elements.
Yes.
Understood? Like we did for that vertically suspended rod last time, same kind of thing. Here we're doing the calculation. Okay. So now let's do this calculation. So as you can see, this will give us delta L equal to 4 by 25 into 10 raised power minus 7 into 150 L. Okay, so that is 150 into 10 minus 5 into x square by 2. So that will be 5 into 10 square by 2. So this will be 4 by 25 into 10 raised power minus 7 into 1500 minus this will become how much? 500 by 2. So that's 250. So 1250. Okay. So 4 by 25 into 1250 into 10 raised power 10 raised power minus 7. So that is going to give us our elongation in meters, delta L in meters. Okay. So 25 was 5 times in 125. So 200 into 10 raised power minus 7 or 2 into 10 raised power minus 5 meters. That is our elongation. So you can see that it's basically 0.02 millimeters. So I'm getting by calculation 0.02 millimeters. You can just check my calculation once.
Yes, sir. 0.202 millimeters.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this calculation is correct. So this is a repeat of what we had done last time, only this time the tension is a slightly different kind of linear function. There it was mgx by L at a distance x from the top. Here it is like a linear function like this. It is 150 minus 5x. Okay, now similarly, if we do this calculation here, you can see that it's going to be we write the volume as AdX. So this kind of an expression we get for the total potential energy stored. Okay, so for doing this integration, you don't need to expand this whole term 150 minus 5x whole square. Just take that as a substituted variable. 150 minus 5x, take it as z or t or something. That will be more convenient for doing the integration.
Sir,
Yes.
can you please explain this potential energy part again from the starting?
Yeah, that small volume element has energy stored in it equal to how much? Energy density into volume. So this is the potential energy stored in a volume of dV. So that potential energy is equal to energy density, that is energy per unit volume, multiplied by volume. That is the idea. Now the formula for energy density is half stress into strain, which is the same thing as half of Young's modulus into strain square, or we can write it as half of stress square upon Young's modulus. So this term, this is the energy density, this whole term.
Okay, sir.
Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's complete this integration next. So as I was saying, what we can do in this integration here is we can take 150 minus 5x as a different variable. Since it's the tension, let's take it as t only. So minus 5 dx is equal to dt. So this integration of x equal to 0 to x equal to 10 meters of 150 minus 5x whole square dx can be treated as t square into dt upon minus 5. Okay. From x equal to 0 implies that t is equal to 150 to x equal to 10 implies t is equal to 100. Okay, so it will become like this. This integration is equal to minus 1 by 5 t square dt from t equal to 150 to t equal to 100. Okay. So that is minus 1 by 5 into 100 cube minus 150 cube divided by 3. That's 1 by 5 into 15 cube minus 10 cube divided by 3 into 10 raised power 3. You could have just taken 5 cube common. This would have been easy. -27 minus 8, so 19. This will be this integration part. So the full calculation we still have to work out. So as far as this energy is concerned, it is equal to, we can see it is 8 by 25 into half, so 4 into 10 raised power minus 4 minus 11, so that's 10 raised power 7 into this integration. So when we work this out, this will come out to be minus 7 into this factor, which is now how much? 125 into 2 is 250, so 2.5 into 10 raised power 4 into 19 by 3. So whatever this finally comes out to be, this is the energy stored in joules. So that will be 19 by 15, 10 raised to minus 3 joules. Okay, people. So hope the application of this. Yeah, Rajvi, that value of tension at T equal to 100 meters, X equal to 100 meters is coming from the formula now. It's 150 minus 5x. So substitute the value of X as 10. You're getting it as 100. The last part is just integration. Jagannath. This whole part is integration by substitution. So just follow the steps in this integration. I have substituted 150 minus 5x as t. So this integration becomes this. Okay. Dx becomes dt by 5, and accordingly you have to adjust the limits also. Instead of x equal to 0, the value of t at x equal to 0 is 150. And instead of x equal to 10 meters, the upper limit, the value of tension at x equal to 10 is 100. So that's how this integration converts into this, on doing the substitution fully, including the limits, and rest is just calculation of the integration. So now this whole integration is substituted in place of this thing. This integration, it's a definite integration, so its numerical value is this now. That's how we come to this next step. Okay, so now let's move on to the next aspect of stress and strain we want to discuss before we wind up this chapter, and that is the concept of thermal stress. So change in temperature, particularly of metallic objects, causes the tendency to expand or contract. And if there are some physical forces acting on a metallic object in such a way that it is not allowed to compress or expand as per the natural tendency from thermal effects, then it will be under the action of stress, which is then called thermal stress. Okay. So stress developed due to the tendency to expand or contract as a result of temperature change, thermal effects, okay, is called thermal stress. And the calculation of thermal stress just involves the, the application of two sets of concepts. One is Hooke's law, and the other is the principle of thermal expansion itself. So let's look at the calculation with a very simple example. So suppose we have a situation like this, that we have a metallic rod which is kind of jammed or fitted between two rigid walls such that it fits perfectly at a given room temperature. So whatever the distance between the two walls, that is equal to the natural length of our metallic rod at the room temperature, let's say. So now from this room temperature, if we tend to increase the temperature, then the two rigid walls will apply force on it in such a way that it doesn't allow the metallic rod or whatever body to expand as per its natural dimensions at a higher temperature, and thereby it creates thermal stress. So this is, let's say, a metallic rod. Now this metallic rod has Young's modulus Y, coefficient of linear expansion Y, alpha, cross section area, let's say capital A, and natural length at temperature theta naught, it's equal to D. So now if we observe the same system, so therefore at a higher temperature, let's say theta equal to theta naught plus delta theta, we want to calculate the stress, okay, and the tension as a result of the stress developed in the rod. Okay, and let's take some typical values for this. So Young's modulus is, let's say, this much. Coefficient of thermal expansion is again some kind of standard value like this much, let's say. Area of cross section, let us say, is 5 centimeters square, and this natural length at the original temperature is, let us say, 2 meters, and let's say we are subjecting it to a temperature rise of 50 degrees C. So from that we will calculate the stress in newtons per meter square and the actual value of the tension in newtons that the rod develops. Okay. These are rigid walls, so they will not move under the action of the stress in the rod. Okay. So what we'll understand in this example is that at the new temperature of theta naught plus delta theta, the natural length of the rod would have increased. Okay, but because of it being between the walls, it is subjected to compressional stress. Okay, the walls are applying on it. A compressional stress by some kind of normal contact force that develops. Okay, and that creates an internal tension which creates stress. This would have become L had there been no walls. So at theta equal to theta naught plus delta theta, the natural length of the rod would have been the original length into 1 plus alpha into delta theta. So that is this much. Okay, but the compressed length, due to the compressional force that develops as a normal contact force applied by the walls, that is equal to D only. So you can see that the compression delta L is basically the natural length minus the compressed length, which is basically equal to D into alpha delta theta. So therefore the compressional strain delta L by L is equal to this value. So just if you note down up to this step, then we will do the calculation of stress from this strain by using Hooke's law, and then finally defining stress as tension divided by area of cross section, you'll be able to calculate the amount of tension in newtons given all these values.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, but the stress developed due to thermal effects would be a little weak, right? Compared to other stress.
Oh, it is quite strong. That's what I'll show you with the calculation here. So that is why it is extremely important to account for, so in systems where we have metallic parts, which are typically pretty long and subject to extreme temperature changes, we have to leave gaps with sealant in between to allow for thermal expansion. Otherwise, it will develop a large amount of stress and tension, which can cause damage and fracture also. A very good example of that is railway tracks. At the junction points between railway tracks, there are gaps of few millimeters left, up to few millimeters. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, the thermal stress will tend to cause the railway tracks to bend. And where they bend, there will also be excessive strain created, which over a period of time will cause the metal to weaken and fracture at such points. Okay, so it might seem like it's a very small amount in terms of a fraction of a millimeter or a few micrometers, but the overall amount of tension it can create can become pretty large, and as a result of that, it can cause severe damage. Okay. So here, for example, if we do this calculation, now while doing the calculation, we'll do an approximation over here, that we will approximate the denominator as D only, because in the denominator, alpha delta theta is very small compared to 1. So this is an approximation that we do, that 1 plus alpha delta theta will be approximated as 1, because alpha into delta theta will be very small compared to 1. So the strain is equal to alpha delta theta. So the stress, which is tension per unit area, is equal to the strain divided by Young's modulus. Using this, you can see that the amount of stress developed, thermal stress, sorry, it's alpha delta theta into Young's modulus.
Yeah.
For example, for the values that I've given over here, the stress is 6 into 10 raised per 11, that's Young's modulus, into alpha, which is 3 into 10 raised per minus 5, into the temperature change, which is 50. So this will be the overall stress in newtons per meter square. You can see it will be a significant amount of stress. 18 into 5 into 10 raised power 11 minus or 12 minus 5 or 10 raised power 7 Newton per meter square. So that's a pretty significant amount of stress. Okay. And even though the area of cross section might be small, you will see that it will create a significant amount of tension. So this is the thermal stress developed.
Okay.
Okay. For a 50-degree change. Now 50-degree change is a radical change, but still. And accordingly, the
So that's
tension will be this stress into the area of cross section. And the area of cross section, I think we've taken as 5 centimeters square. So in meters square is this much. So 4.5 into 10 raised power 5, right, newtons. So it's a pretty significant amount of tension that is developed for a 5 centimeter square thick rod.
yes.
So anyhow, this is so in thermodynamics chapter of thermal expansion, there were a few questions which were based on thermal stress, where the Young's modulus additionally was given to you apart from the coefficient of thermal expansion alpha. So this is what we had to do in those questions. Okay, so you can go back to the thermodynamics exercises in HCV, because thermal stress based problems, you will not find them in the properties of matter chapter. Rather, you will find them in the thermal expansion chapter or the heat and temperature chapter, because that comes in HC Verma part 2, whereas elasticity comes in HC Verma part 1. But the idea is it's very simple. As you can see, there's nothing complicated in this application. You have to just connect the two concepts. One is the amount of thermal expansion by the formula of alpha or coefficient of thermal expansion, and the other is the relation between stress and strain by Hooke's law. So just these two concepts have to be put together. Rest is very simple. The complicated questions are really more to do with the integration type of examples, non-uniform stress and strain. That too for the JEE advanced level only. So if you just keep in mind the few questions that we've discussed in class, you should not have difficulty with it.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so this is clear, I hope. Now the last thing for elasticity we will see is the concept of volumetric stress and strain and Bulk's modulus of elasticity. How we apply it to a for an ideal gas in a thermodynamic process. Okay. So again, in thermodynamics chapter also, you would have seen sometimes there's a term like adiabatic Bulk's modulus or isothermal Bulk's modulus of an ideal gas. So let's understand how that works out. So in general, we have seen that Bulk's modulus is defined as volume stress to volume strain ratio. That becomes negative of delta P divided by delta V by V. This is when we consider the volume stress and the volume strain, they are considered with algebraic sign. Okay, so for a compression, what will happen is delta P will be a positive change in pressure, whereas delta V by V will be a negative fractional change. So Bulk's modulus will remain positive. Okay, whereas for an expansion, delta P will be negative because we'll decrease the pressure to allow the volume to expand. Now, for a solid material, Bulk's modulus is a constant. Obviously, for stress less than the proportionality limit. But for a gas undergoing a compression or a ref or an expansion, this Bulk's modulus is a variable quantity. And this variable quantity depends on two things. It depends on the state of the gas and also on the path. So it's basically a path function because it depends on path. How it is linked to the state of the gas at that moment is related to the path that the gas is undergoing. By path, we mean the relation between pressure and volume. In thermodynamics language, what we mean by path is the pressure volume graph. How pressure and volume are related to each other for that particular type of process. Once we understand that this is a path function and this is like a non-uniform quantity, so it's like an instantaneous quantity. So if the gas is going from a state of PV to a state of P plus dP, B minus dV, okay, for a compression, or it is going for an expansion where the pressure is decreasing by dP and the volume is increasing by dV. Okay. So during this differential change, whether we are looking at this expansion or we are looking at the compression, the value of Bulk's modulus will be given by this. So this is the value of the Bulk's modulus during the differential change in state. In the gaseous state. And we will see how this actually depends on the path that the gas is taking to go from state PV to some differential change in pressure and differential change in volume. So on the PV curve, let's say this is the general path along which the gas is going. So it's going from some state over here where it has pressure P, volume B, to something where okay, the pressure is changing, the volume is changing. So during that small change, where the pressure has changed by the differential amount dP and the volume has changed by the differential amount dV, whether it is a compression or a rarefaction or whatever be the case, okay, we can see that the instantaneous value or the value of Bulk's modulus at that moment will be given by this relation. So the general formula for a polytropic process will be given by the following equation now. That for a polytropic process, PV to the power alpha is a constant. Okay, where alpha is basically any numerical constant. Just a moment, people, I will reshare that. Yeah, so alpha is any numerical constant. So for example, you know that if alpha is equal
Sir,
to
we
1, we
did
are talking about,
this.
yeah,
Sir, we did this. B is equal to alpha P.
sorry, we did.
We had done this.
Sir, we had
Did-
done this. B is
We
equal
done
to
that in
alpha
the
P.
last lecture.
Yes.
Okay, then we can just wind this up quickly. So as you can see, if you differentiate this, it should be 0. So dp into v to the power alpha plus p into the derivative of this term v to the power alpha, which is alpha v to the power alpha minus 1 dv. This should be 0. So v dp plus alpha p dv is equal to 0. So from this you can see that Bulk's modulus, which is minus dp divided by dv by v, is equal to alpha p. So remember this, right? Bulk's modulus coming out to be alpha p. So that is why, for example, we say that in an adiabatic process, the Bulk's modulus of elasticity is gamma into p. For an isothermal process, the value of Bulk's modulus is equal to the instantaneous pressure. Okay, so since you've done this in the last lecture, you should be pretty clear with this. So with this, we complete elasticity today, right? Next lecture, we will look into the non-ideal fluid properties, that is surface tension and viscosity. That will be the final part of this section, properties of matter. So that's it for today's session, people. Wish you all the best, and make sure you do questions related to elasticity and application of Hooke's law and complete all that, so that next time onwards or next week you can concentrate more on surface tension and viscosity from this section of physics.
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.
Okay,
Sir,
bye.
thank you, sir.
That's it for today.
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.
Sir,